Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers reveal an emotional statue, and Rui Hachimura injures his calf. Plenty to talk about next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcast. This one is always grade A and free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the channel, Andy, all of whom are really, I think the reaction to the unveiling of the Kobe and Gigi Bryant statue heading into the weekend was, I thought, incredibly positive. The way the Lakers handled all of that. We'll get into a little bit of Team USA with LeBron and AD continuing to roll as the Team USA gets into the medal rounds. And Rui, Japan is out, and Rui left a little bit early with a calf injury. So that's something to pay attention to. Do want to let everyone know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I will be candid. I think we talked about this a little bit when the Lakers revealed the plan for the 3 statues for Kobe. That this one kind of conceptually made me a little uncomfortable. I wasn't, how to handle a statue that didn't just incorporate Kobe, but also Gigi. And the Lakers heading into the weekend in a very small and private ceremony, not one open to the public, unveiled the statue. And I have to say, at that point, my reservations went away.
Yeah, showing it right now for those watching the show. You can see the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. It is of Kobe with his arm around Gigi. He's giving her a kiss on her forehead. They're sitting on chairs that have backs that look like angel wings. Kobe is wearing a Philadelphia Eagles.
It's the seats from then Staples, but with the angel wings enveloping. Right. It's that iconic shot of the two of them together.
Right, and Kobe's wearing an Eagles beanie that Gigi had given him as a Christmas gift. Kobe was famously an Eagles fan, having grown up in Philadelphia. And it's funny. I remember when we first talked about the statue being unveiled, before the original statue, before we knew that there was going to be 3 of them. There had been a lot of questions in the beginning about whether or not the statue would acknowledge Gigi Bryant's passing, as with Kobe as well. And this is, again, before we knew that there were going to be 3 of them. And I remember us talking about how, on one hand, it would make all the sense in the world emotionally, and for a city that really knew and loved Kobe, to acknowledge that personal side of the Bryant family's loss, but how it could look as a standalone statue so much different than all the other ones that we were wondering if, for lack of a better way of putting it, thematically, it could seem out of place in ways that you and I were concerned about, just because.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the concerns that I had. Sure,
you wouldn't want to see something that was so obviously tragic, beyond Kobe's passing in that accident. The idea that it took the lives of several others, including children, it was. I think it was something that they obviously put a lot of thought into, and I think that is, I have to imagine, a big reason that they ultimately chose 3 statues. Once I knew that there was going to be 3 of them, I'll be honest, all reservations I had about a statue involving Gigi went out the window, because it was pretty obvious to me from the beginning what image was going to be shown. It was going to be something along the lines of this one. It was the obvious one to use, and the obvious one, very often in this particular case, definitely is the correct choice. And it's an iconic image. It's a beautiful image. And it's one that I think they captured so incredibly well. Like, really, the artwork in this statue is gorgeous. Vanessa Bryant, in a statement about the statue, talked about, why they chose the image, but also too talked about how Gigi, had aspirations about playing professional basketball as well and going into the WNBA, and how, when she was coming up, Kobe and Vanessa were aware of the obstacles that women faced trying to carve out a career in basketball comparatively to, the career that Kobe had and that Kobe's peers have in the NBA. And I couldn't help but think about now in a really good way, Brian, like how much things have so dramatically changed for the WNBA just between 2020, when Kobe and Gigi died, and where we are now, and how the WNBA just got this, by their standards, massive TV deal, like record setting for them.
Mhm.
They have been continually building up audience, and obviously it's not equal to where the NBA is in terms of coverage, in terms of money, but it is really growing in a very strong, positive direction. And that's fantastic to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, women's sports generally are when you talk about the areas of growth in terms of televised sports and sports properties and things like that, women's sports are a massive part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, like, you talked a little bit like some of the issues, like putting, like, where would the statue be located? Like, is it with the other, like where Kobe's first statue is, like with the other great athletes of of Staples Center, now crypto.com, and all of that. Like, if it's there, like, how do you acknowledge, the other, the others who died in that plane crash? Like, there were just a lot of those types of things. But when you look at where, like, sort of how the Lakers did this and where it was put, it was set a little bit off to the side. I think near where, like, the Kings Stanley Cup thing is, which, and so it's not in that immediate vicinity. It's surrounded almost like a little garden.
Yes.
They put like a planters around it. So it's not the same kind of statue that you're going to walk right up to and sit next to and something like that. It almost is like something you would see at like a botanical gardens or something like that. And then from there, they, that tie-in that you just mentioned to women's sports, and to the WNBA, and to, being a girl dad and all of that other stuff, is really what is central to the statue. It's not about necessarily Kobe's accomplishments on the court. It's, it touches obviously on Gigi's aspirations to be a professional athlete herself, but it's not about her prowess on the court or things like that. It's really about concepts and, ideas and what's important, and things like that. And, Jeannie had some really interesting stuff to say about the statues, about how the Lakers approached them, and what went into it. So we'll get into that next, as well as it was a weekend not just of a statue unveiling, Andy, but an unusual piece of Kobe memorabilia that was auctioned off for a bleep ton of money. So all that coming up next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, driving patience is what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to in your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts, for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what it is you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available for U.S. customers.
Thank you for making Locked On Lakers first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no offseason in the NBA, Andy. And Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. Some of those national local experts are us. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jeannie had a couple things to say about, when she spoke about the statue, and should this to Spectrum Sportsnet. And she spent a lot of time talking about Title IX and the 1970s and Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs and sort of the initial jump in women's sports, and the mainstreaming of it that has come, and said, quote, "This is really symbolic of that journey." She went on to say, and I thought this was an interesting quote, "Girl Dad hadn't been a meme yet, but my father empowered me, and he was the one who sat me down when I was 12 years old and said, watch Billie Jean King play Bobby Riggs. And it really opened my eyes that anything was possible. He fed that in me to be confident, to believe in yourself. So many of the same messages that Kobe and Gianna and this statue will invoke for many people." So as I was saying, what I think really works for this is that it is about those kinds of concepts, and it's about honoring the advancements, really honoring the advancements of women in sports and the relationships between dads and their girls, in ways I don't want to say that's never been done before, because I think we have, over the last 10, 15 years especially, really started to pay much more attention to the girls' athletics and how the involvement of parents in that, whatever. But that's what they're trying to do here, as much as anything else, to talk about the power of those connections and the power of sports for girls, and the power of dads to empower their daughters to engage with sports and things like that. And that, to me, more than about making it about basketball or greats or tragedy or any of the other things, is really why I think the statue works, beyond, plus like the location and the setting and the way it's presented.
Well, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I do think, though, that in some respects it is actually directly about basketball, and not just because of Kobe. Gigi Bryant was considered an extremely strong basketball player in her own right. And the Sparks play at crypto. And I couldn't help but think about, particularly in the statement that Vanessa put out, that this would have been Gigi's first year in college. And,
Wow.
Right. I mean, she was, this was,
I had not.
This was almost
connection.
5 years ago, and she was around 12 years old. But it got me thinking about how presumably wherever she went to college, she would be playing basketball there. And after however many years, she would be looking to go to the WNBA, assuming that was her dream still. Crypto was a building that she would potentially eventually have been playing in, whether she was a member of the Sparks or member of another team in the WNBA. So there was that recognition, at least for me, made it feel, even more appropriate for her to be commemorated there, because the dreams of Gigi Bryant included one day playing in that building. So I found it very emotional that she would be there.
Yeah, and I think it's the dreams part where, like, I don't care necessarily how good she turned out to be, all these other things, and no, by all accounts, very Kobe-like, very much her father's daughter, in terms of drive, in terms of competitiveness, in terms of all of those other things. I just don't. To me, it's the dream part that I think is what matters. Like, that whether she would have played there or not, whether she would have been good enough or not, like, I don't know, and I don't necessarily care in terms of the symbolism, because when you're talking about kids, it is that that dream, that ability to picture yourself in that space. And because of the tragedy freezes her in a place where the dream is the thing. Like there is no conclusion to it. So you can, in the same way that all kids are when they're 12, it's like you're not at that point where you've learned sort of the harsh realities. When I was 12, it's like, yeah, I can still make the major leagues. It was when, I learned about curveballs and things like that things got a little bit harder. I can't jump. I can't skate quite fast enough. I can't do all that stuff. And there's something sort of poetic about being frozen and not poetic about being frozen, but honoring the moment of that dream, where that dream is still so tangible and still something that you can aspire to. And it's especially poignant and important, I think, to honor that with girls athletics, and put that out in a place where like the statue is about that dream, like that, to your point about the location, everyone can walk up to that and say, I have the same dream as she does. Yeah. And she did. And that to me, like, because 99.9% of people never get there, and that's fine. That's not why you should play. I just say that's the part that I think is important, sort of about the symbolism of it.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's also, I don't think we mentioned this before, but it is now open to the public. So yes, if you want to go down to crypto.com arena, you can go see the statue up close. It's funny. During this season, this was the season where Kobe's first statue was unveiled. There were several games I went to this year where there were long lines of people waiting to get a picture in front of that statue. Like, I have never seen anything like that before. Like, the idea that the statue had been at this point unveiled for 2 months, so you have plenty of opportunities to take that photo, even if you're not going for a Laker game. Like, you still have
stop by the plaza,
right? The idea that there would still be people in lines that I'm guessing you'd be there 10 to 20 minutes minimum. It's just, I've never seen anything like it before. It's remarkable.
Yeah. And I like that this one is different than that. I like that this is, it's something you go and you think about, and you sort of like in the ways. So, I mean, like I said, I was a little nervous, less nervous as you seem more understanding about, but like in that initial thing, I was like, how do you do this right? And say what you will about the organization in terms of the product that they put on the court and stability and El Segundo, like this sort of thing is the stuff that they pretty consistently nail.
I'll take it a step further. They don't just consistently nail it. They consistently do it better than anyone else in the league, and as good as anybody in sports. Period.
Yeah, I agree. Should we start we'll set up this Kobe thing. His locker from Staples Center sold at auction, Sotheby's. It's the biggest buy for a locker in the company's history. It's the third biggest Kobe memorabilia purchase. It was purchased, Andy, for $3 million. $3 million. I'm just going to presume it's a dude. It's just what men spend their money on. There's a dude out there now who's going to have Kobe's locker, I guess, in his house, in his office, in his man cave. I mean, I think that is both cool and kind of weird. I would like to know, Andy, if you agree, and how much you would pay for something like that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time, and some of my favorite memories growing up in St. Louis as a kid involved going to Cardinal games in the summer with friends, watching Ozzie and Willie McGee, Jose Oquendo. Some of my favorite summer memories as an adult are in LA, Dodger Stadium with my buddies. And if I want to see a game, if I want tickets, I go to Game Time. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. The Game Time app is easy to browse to see the upcoming games, pick out any specific games or matchups that you'd love to attend. They got flash deals where you save even more on selected seats ahead of the game, plus zone deals where you save extra when you just choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. Game Time offers views of all the seats in the venue, the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. Take all the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So $3 million for Kobe's locker. Are you in?
No.
Were you one of the 3 people reportedly driving the bidding up from the opening $750K up to $300,000 or $3 million?
I'll be honest. Maybe it's just I've never had enough FU money to where I can really put myself in the frame of mind of somebody who's spending $3 million on Kobe's locker, or nearly $3 million. But you and I, because of the job that we've had that has included covering Kobe's career, we covered the last 10 years of Kobe's career. We were around Kobe's locker all the time. It loses a certain amount of
literally hanging. We were around the locker.
Right.
A lot.
The novelty for you and I wore off pretty quickly. We never lost sight of the idea of, being able to hear the insights on basketball or even other stuff from somebody like Kobe, who was so smart and so good at relaying his thoughts in really smart, funny, insightful ways. This was something that you and I always recognized. This is pretty awesome. But that being said,
the locker.
No, that is essentially for us the equivalent of being around Kobe's cubicle, and nobody was going to pay $3 million for Kobe's cubicle.
It was his cubicle.
It was.
I tell you what, I wouldn't want the whole lot. I guess if I had $3 million to spend on it, I wouldn't. I would have space. Definitely. I don't have space in my current house for Kobe's locker. But if I had $3 million, I would presumably live in a bigger house. What I would like is the nameplate on the locker, because one of the low-key indications of just how long Kobe's career lasted was and because he never changed locker, everything was always the same, whatever, never switched teams, never did. The fonting, the typeface that they used on these plates that went on the locker to, so you identify every year who it was, would change slightly year to year. New guy comes, it's a little bit bigger, it's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit whatever. And Kobe's was so old that it was it outlasted everyone's. It was just this Bryant right in the middle. And so that I actually kind of would have liked, but I don't need the whole locker.
Well, the nameplate was on the locker. A maintenance worker.
It better be.
Right. A maintenance worker who, according to this ESPN report, went unnamed, I guess, during the Staples Center renovation that turned it into crypto, because the locker room is different looking now than when Kobe was in it. He saved the locker from getting torn down with everything else and sold it to a private collector. I will say this. I hope that whoever bought this locker got the spare locker next to Kobe's locker, because Kobe was a BFD. Kobe had an empty locker between him and I think it was Sasha.
For some of that time.
For some of the time. But there was an empty locker next to Kobe's that was unofficially Kobe's second locker. For $3 million, you should get the unofficial locker and the official locker.
That is it's what we call what the kids call bubble space now in kindergarten and stuff like that. That's bubble space from Sasha, which Kobe periodically needed to avoid killing him. Because there were many times where
he was not the only Laker who wanted bubble space from Sasha. He was just the only one who got it.
But yeah, that is always a great indication. If you ever have an opportunity, whether it's, professionally, as we've been fortunate enough to do, or, you take a tour of a place like, I know, I'm sure crypto does it. I know they do it at SoFi, where you get these tours. A lot of times you can see the locker room and stuff like that. Check out who's got spare lockers next to them, because that is how you really figure out what the hierarchy is inside of a room.
Shaq used to have a spare locker next to him. Kobe had a spare locker.
Right. And by the way, Kobe's was on the end so that there was no infrastructure next to him on the other side.
It was the equivalent of a corner office with a spare office next to your corner office that was also yours.
Because keep in mind, for people who, most people never seen the locker room inside the arena, certainly pre-remodel and all that kind of stuff. It is among the smallest and least fancy, still is, home locker rooms. They've tried to make it nicer, but in terms,
and it is nicer.
It is, but they actually made it smaller in the renovation. But it is among the smaller home locker rooms that you have, might have a chance to go into. And so that was as good, that was as close to boardwalk as they could make that space for Kobe without just building him a different locker room, which they probably considered at one point. So kudos to whoever has that in their house now. Briefly, have you seen an update on actually what the problem is with Rui? Only that he injured his calf and couldn't finish Japan's Olympic run.
No, I have not seen any information in terms of the severity of the calf injury, any expectation of how long he wouldn't be able to play basketball. I mean, Japan was eliminated, so there's no more basketball to be played, which also cuts down on the need for any immediate update on Rui's condition, at least from the Japanese team's perspective. From the Laker fans' perspective, there's information missing.
We got a lot of time before training camp starts. Like, nobody's going anywhere until October. It's right,
but this is the thing that everybody worries about with LeBron and AD. Just the idea that, and these guys are all working out, they're all playing games. You can get hurt doing anything, but in this particular case, Rui got hurt doing the specific thing that he did.
Right.
You're
like
always
wasn't it Elton Brand who tore an ACL literally exercising or something like that? It was something. It was not a live basketball injury.
Yeah, I believe so. I
believe it can happen, but when it happens playing basketball, and this is going to sound callous, Andy. I hope this kind of uses it up. A Laker's going to get injured at the Olympics. This was our concern, this and that. If it has to be someone, better Rui than AD or LeBron. Is that a mean thing to say? It's a little bit mean, but I think everybody would agree with me, right?
I'm just going to let you say your own meanness. I
wasn't rooting for it, but maybe this gets it out of the way. I hope, though. But this is why you watch this. I can't enjoy how well Anthony Davis is playing and the potential for him to really dominate the medal rounds and all these other things because
and how well LeBron's been playing.
Yes, I'm worried about it. I don't. Every time, I don't need to see Anthony. I see Anthony Davis falling down enough in November, in December, in January, and it gives me, I don't need it. I'm not supposed to have to deal with that in July and in August. I'm not supposed to have to see Anthony Davis fall down and worry about that in my off season. It is my off season too, and it's frankly selfish of him to put himself in those positions to give me heart attacks when it's my off season too. Best wishes for a speedy recovery. But I mean, I think he ought to be fine by training camp and stuff like that. But everybody's going to be staring at him, waiting for any kind of vulnerability And if he does get hurt or if he's slow to enter camp or any of those things, because we still hear the reports of Hood Schifino kind of rehabbing, and nobody said, oh yeah, but he'll be good to go. And Vanderbilt is still working through his rehab and all these other things. And the Lakers, margin of error, real thin. Can't have guys showing up already dinged up.
Well, I mean, really, for me, before we go, the biggest concern I would have for it with Rui, the idea that lingering is just Rui last year had a very bad training camp, and it got overshadowed by all the other stuff that was going on in training camp, and Vando getting hurt, and all sorts of other stuff going. I don't remember exactly who was hurt and who wasn't. Vando's the one that definitely jumped out at me. But my hope heading into this year was that this experience playing for Japan would help put Rui into a better rhythm so he could have a stronger training camp.
Right.
Still might end up the same. And, for what it's worth, Rui actually played pretty well for Japan. So assuming he's healthy, this won't matter at all, most likely.
But you don't want to feel like a disruption for whatever he had planned for if he has to take I'm just making up numbers, but what if he had to take a month off? How does that impact his ramp up or stuff like that? I don't know. Just, again, all of this makes me nervous. He should be fine. And hopefully, though, both AD and LeBron make it through all the medal stuff. We will be talking about that over the course of this week as Team USA continues playing games. Thank you again for making Locked On Lakers first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On NBA podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 25,000 subscribers on YouTube. You should be one of them if you're not already. We'll see everyone tomorrow.